Hello, welcome to this YouTube channel, and it is Dipanjan Ghosh from Navadip Vidyasagar College, and this is uh, an online lecture on a poem for mother by Robin S. Ngangom. And you can see here that it is in our semester 2 CC3 course, that is under UG CBCS program course. So fundamentally, what I have to suggest here, fundamentally the primary concern of our discussion here is to uh, make a detailed analysis of this particular text, that is a poem for mother by Rabindranath Nangam or Gangam. But before going to this particular text, let us think about, or let us tell you about something about Robin S. Gangam. As we know that Robin S. Gangam was born in Imphal, Manipur in 1959. I am reading from uh, the Worldview edition of the text. Its name is Interventions, Indian Writing in English, edited by Anand Prakash. So here it has been written that Rabindranath Ganga was born in Imphal, Manipur in 1959. A teacher of English literature, Gangam has given a major part of his time and attention to writing poetry. He writes in English and Manipuri and gives voice to issue of freedom, sense of self, culture, and politics, as well as importance of love and fellow feeling. His reference to the presence of terror in society are particularly engaging. Here he expresses the anguish of a perturbed soul. His collections of poetry include Words and the Silence, that was published in 1988, Time's Crossroads, that was published in 1994, and The Desire of Roots, it was published in 2006. He wrote an important essay under the title Poetry in a Time of Terror that was included in The Other Side of Terror. It was an anthology of writing on terrorism in South Asia. So fundamentally, what I'm trying to suggest here, that if you go through the basic story, or if you go through the life of Gangam, then ultimately you will find that he is coming from the Manipuri identity. He is carrying the Manipuri identity with him. And if you go with the societal and at the same time political scenario of Manipur, then certainly you will find that the seven sister states that we know in the northeast part, these are under the severe, political topsy-turvy and political problems and tussles and struggles that is going on throughout the history of these places. That means the seven sister states of India, that comes at the northeastern sections, obviously. So fundamentally, I am not going with all these descriptive notions that you can trace in internet regarding Manipur, regarding the history of Manipur, and different kinds of problems that actually arose in Manipur regarding the political turmoil, and at the same time the sociological turbulence that is happening, and how the Manipuris are protesting against such kind of atrocities that have been preserved or in these particular places. Various kinds of, you see, the corruption, pollution, and at the same time you can find some antisocial activities are always present in this particular country. But this particular thing will be discussed in detail when I will go with the particular poem, that is A Strange Affairs of Rabindranath Gangam. Okay, but now, so far as this particular poem is concerned, that is a poem for mother, ultimately you will find that the term mother is actually being referred in a metaphorical sense. You see that if we try to identify the term mother, then you will find that in India specifically, okay, because you will find in India the concept of motherland has to be treated with much more importance here. So fundamentally, when we think about this particular poem, that is a poem for mother, what I'm trying to mean here, that mother, this very term can also be related in two senses, you see. That means if the mother is referring to the mother actually, that means the biological mother of Ravin as Ngangom, then the second perspective or the second implication may suggest the motherland, obviously. That means to be specific from the perspective of, the nationalist agenda, or maybe related to your own province, then ultimately the mother can also refer to Mother Nature, it can also refer to Mother Earth, Manipur, and by extension, it can also mean India in general. So, therefore, when we read this particular poem, a poem for mother, and the poem is beginning with the particular essence, it is being written with this particular form, that it is Palem Apokpi. You will find here that what it indicates, what it signifies. The both these terms, number one, it is Palem, and the second one is Apokpi. You will find that in Manipuri language, these two terms actually indicate the term mother. So fundamentally, the question certainly arises, and there are ample forms of debates that whether the mother of Ramin S. Gangam was with this particular name, Palem Apokpi. So, but ultimately, in Manipuri language, both these terms are actually indicating the concept of mother. So, therefore, when Rabin S. Gangam is referring to this particular term, he is mentioning to this particular term, he is taking resources of his own mother tongue to refer to the concept of mother, obviously, you see. So, generally, so that is the fundamental reason why I'm saying that this Palem Apokpi, it is the figure of a woman that is individualized through the naming, and the individual may later be transformed into a symbol of the larger phenomenon, and obviously it can refer to the Manipuri identity of a woman, you see. So what is the subject matter of this particular poem? If we go through the particular text, then ultimately you will find that fundamentally this particular poem is actually focusing on the condition of a typical woman in a typical Indian perspective. You see, various kinds of problems, various kinds of obstacles that they are facing, but at the same time, you will find that somehow, if the success of the mothers have been underscored here, then the failure of the sons, like Ravines Gangam, is also being pinned here in this particular poem. So fundamentally, you will find that what are the basic responsibilities of the son? What are the basic problems and tussles that the mothers are facing in their habitual livelihood, or in their, a typical family structure? These are the things that have been underscored. These are the things that have been mentioned by Ravines Gangam in this particular poem. And that is why fundamentally it becomes a poem for mother. Okay, so let us go with the particular text, that is a poem for mother by Ravines Gangam, and we will line by line I will go with this particular text, and we can concentrate on the different aspects that Gangam is trying to focus at. So the poem begins in this fashion, that Palim Apokpi, the name that I am just mentioning, Palim Apokpi, mother who gave birth to me, to be gave birth to me, how I hated leaving home. You will find that how I hated leaving home to be a man. And ultimately, in this particular line, in this particular reference, you will find that it has been mentioned that you are the mother who gave birth to me. How I hated leaving home. That means ultimately you will find that in the first four lines, Palimapokpi, mother who gave birth to me, to be a man, how I hated leaving home 10 years ago. Okay, now these heels have grown on me. So ultimately, you will find that in these first four lines, Gangam is actually indicating towards his own past self, obviously. Because you will find that the past self of Gangam, it actually being originated in terms of the Manipuri idealism and Manipuri thinking, and so. And when gradually he has become a grown-up personality, then you will find that somehow the temperament has got gradually changed. That when you are, that's why here it has been mentioned that the mother who gave birth to me, how I hated leaving home to be a man. Okay, or how I hated leaving home to be a man 10 years ago. So you see that the time frame has been incorporated here. That means the 10 years ago, the temperament of this man, that is Ravinesh Gangam, or maybe the poet persona that has been created in this particular scenario. You will find that the person 10 years ago and the person 10 years later, these are two different persons. Why? Because they have been completely, or this grown up man has been completely exposed to the society, and ultimately he is gradually being associated with the material perspectives. But fundamentally what happens, towards the end of the poem, we will find that as he is growing up, he is growing timid, you see. Okay, that is the bravery, your courage, or the essential things that can relate you with your society, with your culture, with your geographical scenario and geographical structure. All these things are gradually being vanished, you see. Okay, so there will be a kind of a confession that will be made by the poet or the speaker of this poem towards the end of this particular structure or particular text. So that's why it's saying that Palem Apukpi, mother who gave birth to me, how I hated leaving home. So this is the past form that he is using, you see. How I hated leaving home 10 years ago. And now, so the past and present, now these hills have grown on me. That means when I was in my past, I hated leaving home. Okay, but now these hills have grown on me. So it is not literally possible, you see, but what it indicates, that it is the memories, you see. Okay, the memories with its living roots, these are present within my psyche, within my mind. So that is being pointed out. But I am still your painfully shy son with a ravenous appetite, you see. Okay, so here you will find that at the first, you see that here a particular line is being indicated to be a man, you see. Okay, what does it indicate? To be a man, this particular term is actually referring to be on my own. That means to become self-independent. Okay, and now you will find that towards the end of this particular section, you will find it has been written that now these heels, you see, that it has been pointed out that now these heels have grown on me. What does it mean, have grown on me? It actually it is indicating that it made me conscious of their presence and value. That means at the very onset of my career, I didn't value my place. Okay, but now when I have been completely grown up, at this very moment, I can feel the value, I can feel its importance, obviously. But I'm still your painfully shy son, you see, that I am the shy personality and painfully shy. You see the term, as I'm referring to this particular indication, I'm referring to this particular poem as being associated with any particular form of, you see, a confessional poem to some extent, because here Ravinesh Gangam is making a kind of a confession. Okay, though it is not being associated with the confessional genre of Kamala Das and Dennis Levertov and others, and Sexton and Sylvia Plath. But ultimately, we'll find that in this particular poem, the poem ends with a kind of a confession. True. Here it says, but I am still your painfully shy son. You see, painfully shy. So it is not actually indicating that Ravinesh Gangam is very happy with this particular nature, with this natural perspective, with the temperament that he is carrying at this moment. So here he says, but I am still your painfully shy son with a ravenous appetite. Appetite for what? And then it says, the boy who lost many teeth by emptying your larder. So that is the actual, the past orientation that he is being taking. Okay, emptying your larder. Here, the term larder actually means this larder. It actually means the container of the foods. You see that in the kitchen, that that there are multiple food items that have been contained within the container, and you try to just make it open the lid. Okay, so that is the lid of the container, lid of the larder with your teeth. And what happens? In the milk, teeth actually goes. It vanishes. So ultimately, here it says the boy who lost many teeth after emptying your larder. So ultimately, you will find that Gangam is actually referring to his own temperament, right? That means he was not a very reserved person at the time, but now he has becoming shy. So the boy who lost many teeth after emptying your larder, and I am, you see, am. Okay, so here again the past reference, because it is referring in past tense, lost, and then here you will find am. so it is referring to the present. So continuously throughout the poem you will find there is a gradual incorporation of the past and present. These are actually happening here, you see. So here it says, I am, now the am is being in work. Also, you dreamy-eyed lad. Okay, why it's called dreamy-eyed lad? Just because it can literally it can signify the typical Manipuri temperament, and towards the northeastern sections you will find that the shape of the eye is different. You see, okay, from the southeastern parts or maybe the southwestern parts and so the southern India. So ultimately you will find that's why dreamy eyed, but at the same time it can also indicate why it is called dreamy eyed, just because the eye that is carrying the dreams within. So that can also refer to this particular form. So I am also your dreamy eyed, you see, lad who gave you difficult times. So as the poem is a poem for mother, so ultimately you will find that to some extent the mother has been eulogized here, okay, because she had faced multiple kinds of problems with the upbringing of the children, okay, but what she gets at the end, that is the fundamental question, right? So from the typical feminist angle, from the feminist perspective, you can also refer to this particular poem, where you will find that the question is being made regarding the conception of a mother, regarding the conception of a woman, you see. That means what she finds at the end of her life. That means throughout her life, she is just sacrificing her own feeling, own temperament, own, say, thought processes, just for the betterment of your family, just for the betterment of your children. And fundamentally, at the end, what she finds at the end, probably it actually indicates that the mother is thinking that the son might become this and this and this, but ultimately what happens at the end, here you will find that. So I am also your dreamy eyed lad who gave you difficult times, okay. And what kind of difficulties? You will see that difficult times during his school days, romancing every girl he wanted. So this can indicate towards the typical adolescence, you see, that when different kinds of problems, the relations and the psychological perspectives and the mental, associations and different kinds of problems that the guardians actually face with their children who are gradually becoming older, you see. So during his school days, romancing every girl he wanted, even so from when? So even when he still wore half pants. So from that early adolescence, when the boy is an early teenager, he is fancying, or he used to fancy the girl or the classmates or maybe any other girl. And fundamentally what happens, the difficult times had to be faced by the guardians, the difficult times had to be faced by the mother, you see. Why? Because the fathers were gradually being found, or generally being found, to be engaged in the outer activities, and these had to be faced by the mother. So that is the fundamental thing that it actually indicates, that who gave you difficult times during his school days, romancing every girl he wanted, even when he still wore half pants. Then, in the next stanza, you will find that you told your children. So these are the typical moralistic perspectives, you see. The moral that probably the ethical thinking, the morals that the mothers are preaching towards their son or towards her children. So here it says that you told your children that money and time, these are very important two terms or two words that are very significant and very important so far as your morality and ethics and everything is concerned. You see, in life you have to value this. So money and time do not grow on trees. What it indicates, do not grow on trees. So it means that it is not coming easily, you see, okay, or it is not very easy to handle. And these two, money and time, these are very important and significant towards your shaping of your life. And that is the thing that the mother actually teaches. The mother actually makes the children learn it, okay. To shape your life, to shape your future, you have to value these two things. The first one is money and the second one is time. So there it says that money and time, do not grow on trees. Okay, it's something like a phrase that indicates that it is not very easy. Okay, so and I could never learn to keep up with them. So again, what you will find, as I'm already suggested, that throughout the poem you will find that the past and present are incorporated. Throughout the poem you will find what the mother tried, okay, regarding her children to become, and what actually happened. Okay, so here you will find that the mother is trying to make her child feel that money and time do not grow on trees, and I could never learn. So again, a kind of a confession. Okay, so though the mother is trying to make her children feel this, to make our children value these, but ultimately the speaker says that I could never learn to keep up with them. That means I never found time to be important for me, and also the money, so I never learned to keep up with them. It isn't that I have forgotten what you have come to mean to me. Okay, so though I abandoned much and left so little for myself or others. So here it says that I know, and as I've already stated, that it is a kind of a confession in the form of a poem. Okay, so here he says that I haven't learned how to use them well. Okay, but it is not that I have forgotten. So it is actually it is possible, because if the speaker had forgotten this, then there was no possibility of writing a poem indicating them, right? So what is the problem? The problem was in the temperament of the speaker. The problem was within this poet. So that's why he says that it is not that I have forgotten. I have forgotten what you have come to mean to me. That means what you tried to make me feel, make me understand. Though I abandoned much, that means in spite of knowing all these things, I abandoned much and left so little of myself for others to remember me at home. That means I don't carry anything positive. I don't carry anything, to be memorized by others, to be taught by others, because I don't have that capability. I do not have, whenever you leave, there is a fundamental thing, there is a fundamental quest, or that must be within us, that to do something that should be remembered after our death by others, you see. So that is the thing that Ngangom is trying to project here. That is the thing that Ngangom is trying to refer here. That in spite of the teaching that you have given me, or you gave me beforehand when I was a child, that you have to value time, you have to value, the money, and ultimately I couldn't feel that I was become successful in dealing with them, you see. And that's why he says that it is not that I have forgotten what you have come to mean to me, though I abandoned much. That means the essence of your teaching is not with me at this moment, and I left so little of myself. Okay, that everything has to be done everywhere. You see what it actually indicates, you see, that throughout the study, throughout our understanding of literature, of your philosophy and everything, you will find that two fundamental things come side by side. One is the spiritual perspective, we have to feel that what we actually need, you see. Okay, at one point you will find that the spiritual things are in work. At another point, you will find the philosophical points are in work, and the alternative form is the material life, obviously. In each and every holy scriptures, whether it is Bible, whether it is Gita, Srimad Bhagavad Gita, and in everything you will find that from every religion, you will find that the fundamental focus is being given, that you don't try to grab something that you cannot make it sustain. Okay, that means the material world, or materialism, or maybe something related to the earthly enterprises, these are very short timed, because ultimately you cannot carry them, okay, eternally. So fundamentally, in each and every kind of philosophy, whether it is spiritual, whether it's philosophical, everybody will find that the focus that is being preached, that everybody has to focus on something that must not be associated with any material, which must not be associated with these earthly enterprises. So what happened, that it is a kind of an avidya, that the term that I'm taking from Upanishad, uh, for this particular presence of avidya, that is actually ignorance, that we focus more on something that may not be, or that probably we focus at the material, and we actually abandon spiritualism. But the contrary state was being intended, you see, that we must focus at something spiritual and we must abandon earthly or material life. So what happens, the avidya or ignorance, it actually to some extent makes us ignorant about our originality. And what happens, that we become conscious where we ought to have been unconscious, and we become unconscious where we ought to have been conscious. So that is the fundamental thing. And here you will find that Gangam is stating, not directly being or overtly, all these things have been mentioned by him, but Gangam is stating that here you see that so little of myself, I left so little of myself for others to remember me. That means in me there is nothing that could be remembered by the people, by people of you know by the people of Manipur, by people of India. But ultimately, we will find, obviously, that whenever we read Gangam's poetry, then we can find no, he is actually creating something for which he will be remembered in future, obviously. Okay, so then he writes in the next stanza that I know how you toil as all mothers do. You see, so how I know how you toil as all mothers do. You'll find that for unmarried sons and aging husbands and liberated daughters-in-law, so here you will find that somehow this particular mother is becoming an universal mother, truly. Why? Because you will find that the mother is becoming a particular archetype here. Okay, so here that's why it says that I know how you work your fingers to the bone, or I know how you toil as all mothers do. You see, for unmarried sons, the three terms have been indicated here. For unmarried sons, aging husbands, liberated daughters-in-laws. These are somehow very interesting. You see, why? Because you will find that the mother is sacrificing his life for the unmarried sons, because everywhere she is trying for the betterment of her son. The aging husband, this is actually indicating towards the care. And then the problem is with the term liberated daughters-in-law. What does it mean? Liberated daughter-in-law. So ultimately, it actually mocking to some extent the temperament of the new lady or new woman, you see, liberated, obviously. That means the lady who, or the new woman, who is obviously not conventional. She is something different from the temperament of these mothers, you see, and she is thinking in terms of liberty from any the clutch of the family or the responsibilities or anything related to that. And Gangam is actually mocking with this particular term, that is liberated daughters-in-law. Probably you will find that somehow it actually indicates what? It actually indicates toward the failure. Okay, the failure regarding some positive output. Okay, that means ultimately you are doing for them, but in return you cannot getting anything, right? So that is the thing that he's trying to propagate here. So I know how you toil as all mothers do for unmarried sons and aging husbands and liberated daughter-in-law, worried about us for a long time. Your lips couldn't burgeon in a smile. Okay, your lips couldn't burgeon or blossom in a smile, into a smile. Lines have furrowed your dear face, and first signs of snow are on your hair. So, can you not find that somehow this particular poem can also be uh, interpreted in terms of some eco-critical perspective? Okay, if we can think that somehow the mother is actually indicating towards a mother in the mother nature, then ultimately you will find that somehow the mother nature is gradually sacrificing her own status, sacrificing her own self for the betterment of the people, but ultimately in return she gets nothing. Okay, so that's why I'm stating that the mother, this particular term, can be metaphorically significant. You see that it can indicate multiple other things. So here he says that you worried about us, okay, for a long time. Your leaves couldn't blossom in a smile. That means just toil and labor and sacrifices for us, okay. But what happens? Lines have furrowed your face. What it indicates? Lines have furrowed your face. So you will find that somehow the term furrowed, it is indicating towards a plough mark, obviously. Okay, so what happens that it's the plough mark or the trench, okay, that is happening on Mother Earth, that is Earth. You see that when the plough moves, it actually indicates towards something fertile. Okay, the infertile land has to become fertile with the plough marks. So generally, you will find that with that particular mark, the future generation will be possible. So here in this particular reference, that when it says that lips couldn't burgeon in a smile or blossom in a smile, lines have furrowed your face, I can find a kind of a similarity between the faces. Actually, it is indicating the palsy and the marks on your face. You see that with the aging it comes. Okay. Uh, Similarly, you will find that it is actually indicating, or it can also refer to the marks or the plow marks on the field. And everywhere you will find that with the particular furrowing of your face, you are making your son, you are making your children capable of doing something. Okay, so it is indicating with some positive result, some fertile result. Similarly, if you try to refer to this particular thing with nature, then fundamentally it is referring to that with the plough marks, certainly the barren land can be transferred into a you know, into a fertile land where the possibility of the future crops is possible. Okay, is there. So there you can find the fertility, and there you can indicate some results, some positive results is being pointed out. So everywhere, again you'll find the leaves have been associated with the virgin, with the blossom, and the bird image can also be associated here. So everywhere the natural perspectives have been incorporated here. So the images actually indicating that the images are indicating that this particular poem can also be classified, the particular poem can also be referred as a poem that says or tells us something about nature, something about not only the mother of this particular speaker, rather it can indicate something more. Okay, and the first signs of snow are on your hair. It is actually indicating that is the hairs are gradually becoming white. Okay, though the image that he is creating, the speaker is creating, it is being associated with nature, the first signs of snow, but it is actually referring to the hair is becoming white, or that means the age is coming. That means the mother is sacrificing for the betterment of his son, of her children. Then it says that I know. Okay, the next section, it says the next stanza. Today, as on every day, you must have risen with temple bells before cockcrow. So this is an usual form, you see, that in the typical northeastern sections, you will find that the mothers are, or the female members of the family. It is not only in the northeastern sections, but also in the southern part of India. You will find that the similar kind of images have been incorporated. The main working, responsibilities, or maybe the work is being done by the female members of the family mainly. You will find that they are actively taking part. So here you will find the generalizing perspective or generalizing image is being incorporated. Here it says that today, as on every day, you must have risen with temple bells. These are, provincialization has been incorporated. So with the temple bells before cockcrow, swept the floors, and after the sacred bath, cooked for the remainder of us. Okay, so the same thing. It is happening again and again. To some extent, these are actually indicating towards the life of the mothers. Okay, not the mother, but the mothers. You see, plural. I can see you returning. That means in my memory, in my imagination, I can see you returning every dusk from the bazaar, your head laden with baskets. So, from this today to this basket, you will find that these all, these 6 lines are actually indicating towards the habitual life of the mothers in general. Okay, how they are completely engaged in the toiling work. Why? For the betterment of her family, for the living of her family. You see that how the four worlds has been created. You see, the four worlds has been created, and at the same time you will find some existential perspectives have been incorporated by patriarchy. So these can be indicated with this typical feminist angle, obviously, but we will not deal this particular poem with such, such complex theories. But ultimately you have to feel this particular poem, you have to feel for these ladies in general. The last question of this particular stanza, that must you end thus toiling forever. So that is significantly very, very problematic question, you see, that will it be the typical destiny for these women to end toiling forever, this toil. Okay, will it not end, or will it be continued to the end of this world, that is the doomsday? It will continue forever and forever. So such a kind of a question we can never answer, you see, because this is a question, it is not to be asked to the mothers. Rather, the question must have to be asked in front of the patriarchy. This question must have to be asked in the face of the society and the typical societal practice. The question certainly arises: what does a son do then? Okay, he could change the life of this woman, of this mother, and what he did. So that is the failure of the son, and that's why at the end of this particular poem, at the end stanza or the last stanza, it begins with "I am sorry, Palem." Again, you will find, as I mentioned, that the Palem is referring to the mother. So I am sorry, mother. I have inherited nothing of your stable ways of culinary works. So this culinary works, it is being associated with the cooking skills. You see, so I do not have, or I do not possess anything of your positive traits, of your skills. So I'm sorry, I have inherited nothing of your stable works or stable ways of culinary skills. Forgive me for all your dreams of peace. During your remnant days, I turned out to be a small man. So forgive me for all your gentle ways, for all your dreams of peace and rest during your remnant days. I only turned out to be a small man with small dreams and living a small life. So you will find that the three smalls, okay, the three times at the end of the poem, Ravin S. Gangam is using the term small. Why? Because it is actually indicating the failure of his life, obviously. Why? Because the small man with small dreams and small life, these are indicating towards the mean mindedness somehow, in contrast with the big and bitter and huge temperament of the mothers. So that is the failure of the son, that he cannot change the life, the toil of his mother. And fundamentally, the poem actually becomes a particular kind of an indication towards this particular failure. So that is the thing. That is a poem for mother. So go with this particular poem, and probably the ending is forceful. You see, the mother come across a heroic figure, in contrast to the son who turned out to be a small man. And interestingly, as we look at the poem after the ending, we see a different dimension emerging with the younger generation in the village. Okay, leaving the accepted ways and carving their independence. through small existence. In their case, the supposed evolution of change and newness as has passed through the variety of phrases from shyness to heavy eating and then on running after every girl he met, etc. etc. The speaker left the place and has ever reminisced about temple bells and cockcrow, etc. And is this the reason why the mother remained where she was and proved to be a mute spectator to her general decline in life? The question is worth pondering over, and ultimately we have to answer them. That what is the actual temperament of this particular poem? Is it a kind of a description or another confession or maybe a question that should be asked to everybody, you see? So that is the poem. Go with the text, go with the topics that I have actually raised here in this particular discussion. And as it is a detailed study, so probably it will help you to identify the typical phrases and to try to mean them so far as this poem is concerned. So today, up to this, and thank you. So ultimately, here you will find that I have mentioned a particular web page. You see that it is the I am preparing the e-learning modules for you, and this is the address, and you can copy them in the browser, the URL, and you can just search the other e-learning modules that will help you in your further study. So today, up to this, thank you then.